Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and so I want to talk a bit about the new heroics in patch 14, my overall thoughts on these after like 30 hours played on the new patch, and also some of the buffs I think these definitely need. So we're going to go walk over on like a little detour here to go take a look at the accolade store for ease of use on my brain. And if we look here, so the new ones we got are the Deathwatch Stalker Bull Rifle, Salamander's Power Sword, Combi Flamer, Lord Executioner's Axe, and the Deathwatch Power Fist, and the Salamander's Melta Rifle. Now, the winners of this patch are obviously the Salamander's Power Sword and the Lord Executioner's Axe. The Salamander's Power Sword is probably the best heroic period for this patch. I think Lord Executioner's Axe is kind of catching up, and then the Deathwatch Stalker Bull Rifle, and maybe like the Salamander's Melta are after that. But the big thing here is that some of these weapons definitely need a damage buff and like some utility options. The first one I want to talk about, which is the worst one, is the Deathwatch Power Fist. This one says pause after any light attack to enter a stance and light attack again to fire a Melta Blast and inflicts the burn status. Now they did buff this up in patch 14 from the public test server, and really all that buff did was make the weapon effect functional, because before there was zero tracking on the Melta weapon, or the Melta portion here, the little Melta Blast. But the issue with this weapon is there is no reason to take the Melta Blast over just using your heavy charge attack, and the charge up for the Melta Blast takes way too long. I think Saber really needs to look at this weapon. I'll even go into the armory here so we look at the actual damage numbers, that there is no reason to take this over a standard balanced Power Fist. You are giving up free strength basically for a secondary effect as a complete gimmick. The Melta Blast portion kind of sucks. This one is just way better overall. The Block Fist, especially on classes like Bulwark, is way better. You are also stuck to a balanced parry window here where you are just not getting any of the real benefit of the other options. And my real issue with this one is that if they want you to use the Melta Blast, they have to make it so it actually fits into the combos properly. The light combos here are just not very good on this Power Fist anyways. What you're really doing is you're giving up the opportunity to charge up a thrust jab to literally one-shot the Majoris in front of you and like the 5 guys behind him and put them all into execute, to shoot a fire blast that will not give you an execute opportunity immediately, which means you're probably going to lose your HP, and on top of that you will also be setting yourself up to get no contested health back. So this one's just not that strong. They really need to take a look at this option, and I think this is by far the weakest of the new heroics. And if they want to fix this, make it so you can use that Melta Blast after a lunging attack, after a thrust jab. If this was fitting itself into the thrust jab attacks, this would be a super strong effect. Like if you do a thrust jab and immediately go into that Melta Blast, that would feel really good to use, and if the animation was a bit faster, it'd feel a lot better as well. And if they do that, I think this would be a great effect. But for now, this one's pretty donkey tier. Now for the Salamander's Power Sword, this one's just peak. Okay, like the heroic perk effect down here, Nocturne's Retort, perfect parry to empower the blade and deal 300% more damage to the next light attack and speed style. Hold up to 6 in power stacks, the parry window is smaller. This is peak. This weapon is amazing. This is probably the best power sword in the game right now, if not a contender for like, you know, a side grade on the block and maybe the Xenophase blade. But either way, this weapon is perfect right now. I know a lot of you guys want a burn effect on this, but this weapon's already so strong that even without a burn effect, that's more of like, you know, a flavorful thing that we're missing rather than like a direct damage increase that we really want. Now as far as the Lord Executioner's Axe goes, this one is also really good. I mean, the Whirling Strike here, the Aftershock replaced by a powerful spinning attack, hitting 5 more enemies with a single attack, grants 1 adrenaline surge stack. This one is great. I have no problems with this. I think the spin attack radius is super strong. And they also buffed up, it feels, the Aftershock improved perk, where like at the very end of that spin, you will get a slam attack at the very end of this weapon that had a really shitty AoE in the PTS, but in the official release, it feels way better. So I don't really have any complaints with this one. Maybe they could like buff up the speed ever so slightly so you can catch like a ground slam before the block charges run out, but even without that, this weapon's pretty damn good. So I really have no complaints about this one. The weapons I do have complaints about though are the next two. So Deathwatch Stalker Bull Rifle. This thing's perk effect is called Reconnaissance by Fire. Landing 4 successful body shots in short succession creates a small aspect scan area. The cooldown is 8 seconds. Now, this doesn't actually tell you how this perk effect actually works, which is number 1. It is a consecutive body shot. So if you miss a shot anywhere between these 4 shots, you will just not get the aspect scan area at all. And you're like, oh, okay, so skill issue. Just go hit every shot in the body. How hard is that? Well, there's also another problem with this weapon, which is that if you have other damage instances from things like a shock nade, you will also be breaking the consecutive body shot metric, or what the metric's not even the word for it. Well, the point is that you will lose the consecutive body shots here because the shock nade damage ticks and other things like that, they will disrupt the consecutive body shots, which is really silly. And the aspect scan here is also not properly represented to the player. This is not actually a true aspect scan. It is completely separate from the base class ability, which is actually a good thing on TAC, which means you can stack it with your aspect scan. But like, let's say you're a new player and you come into the game and you're like, oh, it's an aspect scan, I use that on my tactical, so like surely it will be the same thing on my sniper. But the answer is no. It's a completely separate effect. The damage buff here is like 30% for Majora's versus the 100% in base of a normal aspect, so it is not as good as it sounds initially, though damage is damage, so it's still pretty useful. Now, my other issue with this one is that you have a piercing of 1 on this weapon, which means you can actually not penetrate like any enemies on this, just like a bolt carbine, which is really silly to me because this is a Stalker bolt rifle. And if you look at all of the other variants here, they have like 4 piercing, which is way better than this one. That means like one shot from this can go through like one guy's head immediately into 3 other guys pretty much, which just gives you a ton of value per shot compared to this one. And also, if you just take frag and penetrator rounds, you get like 1 more shot here, but having to build into an entire perk to get like, you know, not even half of how many of these guys can actually penetrate, that's pretty lame to me. But that being said, this weapon's still pretty fun. The magazine capacity is fat, the ammo reserves are pretty large, and I would say the damage here on the bolter portion is not too bad. It just uses a few buffs and definitely some major fixes to the weapon perk here. The next one here is the Combi Flamer. Now, the Combi Flamer is pretty cool. My only problem with this is the bolt carbine is such a monster at close range that attaching a pyroblast to this, I have not found a ton of benefit for this. And on top of that, this is the patch where burn damage got effectively nerfed on the tactical, where it no longer stacks with your aspect scan. So the Combi Flamer this patch is way worse than it would have been last patch if you could actually stack that aspect scan bonus. And you're also losing damage on your primary bolter portion and ammo here. I mean, the magazine size is better than the other ones, but it's like not a really substantial increase, and you're losing a fat ammo reserve. So I think this one is definitely in need of like a little damage buff. It's not bad by any means, but the reason this one is not bad is because the bolt carbine itself is such a monstrous weapon in Space Marine 2 that even an Artificer bolter here is very strong in Space Marine 2 compared to things like a Relic Tier auto bolt rifle, because this weapon archetype is just that good. So it's kind of carrying the pyroblaster portion. And one more thing here is that the Combi Flamer, you will not get back ammo on your pyroblaster portion from ammo caches still. They said they fixed it, but like that was a fucking lie. So I think they should definitely address that, and also make it so the charge up time for your pyroblaster section is a lot faster. If they built this one with the perk effect resilient frame, I can't English, charging time decreases by 75%, this would feel way better on the Combi Flamer, because then you aren't stuck like awkwardly charging up this pyroblaster portion instead of just shooting your instantaneous range bolter section. Now, the final one here is the Salamander's Melta rifle. I like this shit, okay? I know a lot of you guys actually fucking hate this weapon. I'm kind of shocked to see that, because this is really just a slightly different Melta rifle where the range is way better, the penetration is exactly the same, you have stagger from distance, you also have a higher base damage by like 10%, and they also fixed the damage fall off this patch. But a lot of people don't like this one. They think it's very shit. They think the focus fusion beam thing where it says shots have increased range and narrow spread but need to charge before firing is garbage. I think this one could use like a little damage buff, but overall, I've never thought the Melta is like that powerful of a weapon in the first place, outside of things like the tactical, and this weapon fits on tactical pretty well. And I see a lot of people say like, oh, tactical is carrying the Melta rifle. Well, the Melta rifle's kind of always been carried by the tac, because it's not that strong on the Vanguard class. The only reason it's that good on Vanguard for like things like the range variant or even like the magazine capacity version is because the ammo economy here is quite strong, and stuff like rapid health and trick shot are great utilities. So the stagger's pretty nice, and I think this one is actually a pretty equivalent side grade to these options, and the only real buff I would ask for on this one is if they make the charge up time a little bit faster, because the instantaneous fire of this one is much better than the charge up time on this, and because of that, having this instant shot, you'll be able to get back your contested health much faster, and I think that's where a lot of players are like kind of getting annoyed by this one, because it is a bit more gimmicky and a bit harder to get your CHP back on this version. But overall, I think the damage is pretty good. I think the range attacks here are pretty strong, and being able to like stagger a Terminator Sword Warrior or like a Terminator Missile Cannon guy from a mile away, that is pretty fun. But I know a lot of you guys don't like this one at the moment, so if they are going to buff this one, I think they should make the charge time a bit faster, and they should also make it so the Melta rifle damage buff here is a little bit higher, because if they put this one up by like another 10%, I think that would fit the thing they're going for here, which is a lore accurate Melta rifle, and the way players want this one to work is like a lore accurate Melta where you just shoot the guy and they explode, and I think that would make it feel a lot better. Maybe that would be a little OP, but would it be more OP than things like the automatic bolt carbine already is, or things like the Pyroblaster were, or the heroic heavy bolt rifle? I would argue no. I think it would take a lot more than that to make any Melta rifle in this game a god tier pick, so I think they should just go for the buffs. My problem with the balancing that Saber does for a lot of these weapons is that they are afraid to make things too OP, because they know that like once they add in a god tier pick like the bolt carbine, like the heroic heavy bolt rifle, like the grenade launcher variants on pretty much anything, that if they ever take those away, the player base is going to be very upset. So they usually like to keep things pretty mediocre, or like launch them in an underpowered state to slowly buff them to make sure they don't have to deal with like the backlash. But in this case, I think there are so many broken things in Space Marine 2 already that like having these things be a bit more powerful and in that like upper range of like upper A tier or like maybe even S tier, I don't think it's going to hurt the game. I mean, players already gravitate towards crack shit in this game anyways. It's not exactly like we're going to see something as broken as Shield Bash Bulwark, or just tactical Auspex scan on a boss to nuke them down in 2 seconds, or stuff like the Tech Marine Precision Servo that just like obliterates a Neurothrope almost entirely on its own. So I don't think it's a big issue if they buff up some of the stuff, but you guys let me know what you guys want to see from these weapons in the comments below. If you want to watch me live to ask me questions about the game, or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And as always, thank you for watching, take it easy, bye.